Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm excited to have on Tara, like a Stara, Ruth. That's Tara Ruth. She's visiting us from Herb Mentor Radio, Learning Herbs, and the Bay Area of California. Welcome to the show, Tara.
Thanks, Mason. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is our first time getting to meet. But of course, yeah, I already mentioned it. I kind of know you, feel like I know you through the Herb Mentor Radio, with which a lot of the HerbRally audience knows that my early days of herbalism and getting into the herbal community was highly influenced by John Gallagher and Herb Mentor Radio. But of course, you came way later on, I want to say, in the
I
journey. So
did.
I would love to get into that a little bit. But before we get into all that stuff, why don't we get to know you a bit more? How'd you get into herbalism in the first place?
Yeah, well, first, I just want to say thank you because you've been so instrumental in my herbal journey
That's
because
cool.
I read so many HerbRally monographs when I was first getting into herbalism and listened to the podcast. So I'm really
That's cool.
excited to be here chatting with you.
Glad to
Yeah.
have you.
Absolutely. And my herbal journey really, well, for me personally, it began in my childhood with my parents, but it's been fun over the years to do more ancestral research and see, like, oh, wow, my great grandma was foraging for elderberries and making elderberry jam. And she would have my dad and his brother harvest tons of fennel and ship it across the country so she could make like a fennel liqueur.
Wow.
Yeah, when they were kids. So it's been sweet to, as we all do, track back into my lineage and see where the herbs weave their way through. But I grew up in Northern California, which is a hub for lots of hippies who love to practice herbalism.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I felt really connected to the plants growing up. Both my parents, they worked at Whole Foods in the whole body department. And when, at least in like the 90s and early 2000s, when you worked in that department, you got trained a lot on different herbs and supplements. So there was constantly samples of herbs and supplements and things floating around my house. And so I was just learning about echinacea and lemon balm and all sorts of things as a little kid. And I really took that for granted as a normal thing.
Sure.
Yeah. And then I went to college and I was like, I'm going to be an intellectual now. I'm going to let go of my past.
None of
I'm
that
going to
hippy
be
dippy shit anymore.
yeah, I'm going to be this floating head that really excels academically and not be in touch with my body at all or the land. Like, this is who I want to be now. I wanted to be an academic. I loved learning about theory and, I was just so in my head, but I couldn't help but be in love with all the lavender plants that grew in my
Mm.
neighborhood and couldn't help but wave to trees when I walked by them. So I was noticing that the plants were still with me, even when I was trying to be this, let go of my past in a very cute, youthful way. And in college, I was also really noticing that my whole childhood, of course, had relied on my parents to take care of me and help me with my health. And now, as an adult, I was like, how do I take care of myself? How do
Mm.
I tend to myself when I have a cold or, get a cut on my hand? What are the ways that I want to be taking care of myself? So I started slowly to ask my parents more questions about
Mm.
herbs and
You always
realized
come back around.
I know. It's like there's nothing like a cold to make you really want to learn about elderberry syrup again. You're like, oh
Absolutely.
man, I'm so congested. I know I'm not learning about this in college, but it's probably important. I'll ask my parents about elderberry syrup.
Mm.
So that was a cute, humbling experience. And then right after college, I went to Utah for 6 months and I lived in this little community house, and we were all interns at this nonprofit teaching kids how to garden. And I felt so humbled by the desert. It totally rocked my world. There was I kept on thinking to myself, like, wow, the desert persists. It is
Mm.
so hot here. The ants are bigger here. Everything is so intense. And I can't deny that I am an animal. Like I'm a human. I'm not this floating head.
Yeah.
And the land is so beautiful. There's moonflowers growing everywhere. There's mulberry trees whose berries stain the sidewalks in the summer with all of their little pink berries, and you see pink footprints from people's shoes everywhere. And I just felt so connected to all the plants. I noticed that the kids who I was teaching in the garden, when we went to the lemon balm patch, they're suddenly way calmer than
Mm.
before. And I just started to fall back in love with plants and with myself. And I started listening to podcasts
Mm.
and about herbs, and I was like, oh, I want to study this. I want to be an herbalist. So that's how I got back on the path.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
A few questions, I suppose, and this one could be kind of a quick
hmm
answer, but just out of general curiosity, when you wanted to be that intellectual academic floating head, what were you studying?
Yeah, so I was a double major. I was a huge nerd. I was
Overachiever.
yeah, totally. It was like yeah, I did very well in school. I was very rewarded in that
Mm.
system to want to to continue in that system, but I was so burnt out and unhappy. So that's an interesting thing. But
Yeah.
I was majoring in like film and media studies. So I
Oh,
was doing a lot of like analysis of media and then also in gender studies and getting really into like gender theory and queer theory.
sure.
And it was really cool. I'm really grateful for that foundation of critical thinking. And I still use a lot of my film skills for the job I have now with Learning Herbs, which is great.
Sure. Yeah,
hmm
that's a nice segue into a question I'll
hmm
ask you in a few. But you
Yeah.
brought up a few plants now. You brought up mulberry, lavender,
Yeah.
lemon balm twice now, actually. Looking back at, say, your earlier years, hanging out with your parents, studying herbalism and whatnot, did you have a particular fondness for any specific plant? Was lemon balm one of
Mhm.
those, or which plants were you really drawn to as a child?
Yeah, I liked the plants that tasted good and
Mm,
that were soft.
i.e., lavender or
Yes.
lemon balm.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. I loved lemon balm. I loved blackberries. There was a
Mm,
blackberry bush where I lived. I loved the yellow plum tree that I could
mm,
climb. I liked all the
that's cool.
plants that I had personal connections with, who I was building relationships with. I loved lamb's ear. I wasn't eating it,
Mm,
but I was like, oh,
right.
this is so soft. Yeah.
That one's a cool one to see around the neighborhoods. I still
hmm
get infatuated when I see that. And again, yeah, you said you didn't imbibe it or anything. I can't say, I don't know if there is any medicinal value to it. Feel free to leave it in the comments if there's any uses that y'all know about.
Yeah, I'd love to know.
Yeah, I'm very curious, but it's fun to look at, fun to feel with your hands and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so kind of fast forwarding a little bit. Well, actually, you said you were listening to Herbal podcasts. Were you listening to Herb Mentor Radio, or which ones were you listening to?
I was listening to Herb Radio.
That's cool.
And then I was listening to, I think it's called Medicine Stories.
Oh yeah, with
Um,
Amber Magnolia Hill, I think. Am
yeah,
I getting
I
that right? Yeah,
listened. Yeah, I listened to basically every herbal podcast I
that's
could
cool.
find. And
That's
whenever
awesome.
I want to learn about something new, that's usually how I start. I obsess
Totally.
over the podcasts and
Yep,
then I decide if I want to deepen. And I did.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, who have been some of your mentors? I want to say you went to the California school. Or, am I getting that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went
So
to the
who'd you study
California
with?
school. Yeah, I studied with Brian Bowen,
Mm,
Jen Bredesen, Karen Aguar, who unfortunately passed this past year, but she was my
oh,
medicine making teacher. She's
oh,
amazing.
mm,
And Autumn Summers were some of my core teachers at the California School of Herbal Studies. Yeah. And I was very fortunate too that my um, best friend from college also went to herb school with me. We
wow.
we
Had the same realization, or?
yeah, I when we were in college, she studied botany, and then after school, after we graduated, I started getting into plants. So I reached out to her and I thanked her for talking about plants with me when we were in college. And I was like, I want to be an herbalist now. And she was like, what's that? And so we went to herb school together. And with her major botany background, she became, my friend mentor. And we did all of our studying together. And her name's Leah Liebman. She's now a teacher at the Berkeley Herbal Center. And she's an
No
amazing
way. Okay,
herbalist.
so she's an
Yeah.
herbalist now too.
Yeah, yeah, she's incredible. We're gonna teach a class in a few weeks together, actually. I'm excited about. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So at first she was like, "What's an herbalist?" and now she is one.
Yeah, yeah. It's incredible.
The plants really just rope you in, don't they?
Oh, they do. They're like, the water's nice. Come over here.
I love that. All right. Well, thanks for sharing your story, a bit about it. I don't know if there's anything
Yeah.
else you want to kind of specifically get into, but regarding that. But I am really curious how you ended up. You were listening to Herb Mentor Radio. Did you ever, in your wildest dreams at the time, think you would end up being like a co-host on the show?
No, no, not at all. I
That's wild.
Yeah, when I was planning on going to herb school, I thought I was only going to go for a year because at the
Hmm.
California school, there's a 2-year program and you can choose to just go for 1 year.
Gotcha.
And I saved up my money to go for this 1 year. And my school was set to start in early March of 2020. And then the pandemic happened and we started
Oh wow.
school that week. And they did an amazing job being really agile and adjusting to, all the different factors that we were dealing with in order to just go to school in early March of 2020. And I thought I was just going to be there for a year. And then I was planning on getting an MSW and I wanted to be doing like therapeutic gardening.
Hmm.
And because of the pandemic, I decided to stay for 2 years at the California school. And at the end of my first year, I was on unemployment, which was amazing. And it was supposed to last for like far more months than it actually did. And suddenly I got a letter in the mail that was like, your unemployment has actually run out today. I
Oh
was like,
shit.
oh my God, what am I going to do? And then I saw this email from John at Learning Herbs that there was a job. And I applied that day that I got the letter from unemployment. And then I was hired 3 days later.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
yeah, it was all very serendipitous. I
Yeah.
applied one day, John and I talked on the phone the next day, and then was hired. Yeah.
Just a quick break from the show to let you know about our herbalism freebies. So if you'd like to get a bunch of ebooks, herbal community discounts, videos, audio lessons, all the above and more, you could go to herbrally.com, and at the top of the navigation menu, you're going to see a button that says freebies. So when you fill out that form, you're going to be signing up for our email newsletter, and in exchange, you're going to get a ton of herbalism freebies, and you're going to love the email newsletter because it updates you on herbalism events, new YouTube videos, etc. So I know you're going to love it. So thank you so much. And now back to the show. I suppose your studies at the California school really intrigued John, and that kind of maybe bumped you to the top of the list,
Yeah.
along with your admin skills and everything, creative
I
skills.
I think that helped. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
had a background in social media management at some nonprofits. And I also just, in my application, I just told stories. And John and I are both really big on storytelling as a way
Mhm.
of learning. And so I just told the story of like getting to make salves with my grandma when I was a
Mm.
little kid and, learning about that plum tree I mentioned or the blackberry bushes or the black walnut tree in my yard. So through the power of storytelling, I somehow found myself at Learning Herbs, and here I am still.
Were you storytelling through like a resume or like a written email? Did you send a video or anything like that?
It was, I think it was just like an online form of filling out answers to questions. Yeah.
Okay,
So
cool.
each question I just answered with a story. Yeah.
Amazing. Well,
Mhm.
why don't you tell us a little bit more about your role, all the different hats you wear over at Learning Herbs?
Yeah. So I started as a social media manager, as the communications director for a little while. Now my official title is content director. And yeah, we're a small company. So like with all small teams, I wear a lot of different hats, which is fun.
Oh yeah.
I lovingly call myself an airhead. Like just a very airy person. So it's nice to have change and dynamic work. And I do the Herb Mentor Radio podcast with John. I help do our curriculum planning on Herb Mentor, our online membership site. And yeah, I get to co-host fun meetups with our members and teach classes. And yeah, a little bit of social media work here and there, some blog writing, all sorts of stuff. Mhm.
I'm not a huge astrology nerd, but is your sign an air sign perchance?
I am. I'm a
Oh,
Gemini.
okay.
We're majority Gemini at Learning Herbs.
No way.
Yeah, it's
That's funny.
like so many of the birthdays are crammed into June.
Is Kimberly also?
She's one of the only ones who isn't.
Okay.
Yeah, but John and I both are, and
Yep, I
then
can see
yeah, I
that.
think a few other folks. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Uh, so how often are you hosting these Urban to Radio? Is it still like once a month or so?
Yeah, we have about once a month for our longer podcast interviews. And
Okay.
then once a month, we'll also have a short video that we call, or a short audio clip that we'll
Sure.
call an herb note that we also make videos with on YouTube. And an herb note is like a 2 minute, just little appetizer about an herb, basically.
Like
Like,
a mini
here's
monograph almost.
yeah, here are a
Nice.
few ways you could engage with this plant. And I like to think of it as a gateway, an
Yeah.
opportunity to start learning more rather than an exhaustive, like, here's how you use this herb. You know?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw you came out with a chickweed one somewhat recently, so
Yeah.
those are fun.
Yeah.
Those are a lot of fun. Yeah, just the little bite-sized nuggets of information on each plant. We'll leave links to Urban to Radio. Of course, you can find it on whatever podcast player you're listening to,
Mhm.
Spotify, Apple, etc. But well, pre-show we were talking about different topics we could potentially cover, and you were excited about this whole herbs for creativity concept, and I was excited for that. I've never really heard someone chat about that, so
Me neither.
is this something you're kind of developing, or you've been thinking about this for a while?
Yeah, it's something I think about a lot
That
as
is so cool.
yeah, I really I love making things and I've
Yeah.
often felt really burnt out at various parts of my life and felt my creativity kind of feel dulled. So
Mm.
I've been in a question over the years and of like what practices and what herbal allies can help me really be in right relationship with my creativity.
I'm listening to a Brene Brown book right now, and she's talks. She's talk. Do you know who Brene Brown is?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, heck yeah. She was talking about how a lot of times as we get older, we're more
Mhm.
interested in checking things off the to-do list and work, work, work,
Yeah.
work. And she said it's so important for holistic health in
Mm.
general to not only rest but play and practice creativity. It's so essential for our happiness.
Yeah.
So, how do you use herbs or herbalism to unlock your creativity?
Yeah. Well, one of the first things I like to do is think about the life cycle of a plant. And every plant's a little bit different, but there's the general, you start as a seed, you sprout, you probably shoot up, you might have flowers and fruits, and then the plant often dies back, and then it's either, completed its life cycle or it's resting during the
Hmm.
winter. And I think about how in just the current like social systemic setup that we're in, there's often not space to have these times for resting and times for fruiting. Like it's about always producing, always creating, always like basically getting to show your work, like here's
Hmm.
why I'm valuable. I have created these things, I've produced X, Y, and Z. And the plants give us this beautiful opportunity to think about what it looks like to be in right relationship with our actual capacity and the capacity of all the beings and like resources that we're relating to. So that's what I first think about. And then when I'm thinking about the life cycle of a plant, I'm also thinking about seasons and the elements and how the seasons invite us into different modes of being with each season. Right
Hmm.
now, we're in winter. So this is a great time to be like the bears, to be hibernating, to be dreaming into the next year. That dreaming, nourishing, restorative time really can give us a well so that we can shoot up in the spring like little chickweed plants. And then we can flower in the summer and fruit in the fall. and then start to prepare for rest again in the winter. So I've been really, since starting studying herbalism, really thinking about like how the seasons and the plants can teach me what my actual capacity is. And that's been an exciting process to be in. And then I've also started to think about like what are the actual herbal allies in that process too that can really help me, and what are the rituals that can help me ground and contain my creativity too. So I have some specific herbal allies we can get into, and then some tips on setting up different rituals and containers too, if you want to dive on into that.
Oh yeah, I love that. I wasn't sure where you're going with this, and I love the seasonality aspect to it. And as you said, we're
Yes.
recording this during it's February right now. Who knows when this will be released?
Yeah.
We're on an every other week schedule right now, so hopefully in a
Yes.
couple months at least. But yeah, so we just went out of town to Door County, which is kind of a touristy spot in Wisconsin, and we spent the past couple days at a Winterfest, which we just realized lined up with Imbolc, and we were all there,
Perfect.
having fun, and the cold outside, listening to music. We listened to this stump fiddle competition, which was really entertaining,
Cool.
and it was this nice combination of rest and play, and today's Monday, I'm back in the work mode and everything, but I feel so much juice right now just because I was able to rest and relax in wintertime. I like the idea of seasonality. And yeah, as you mentioned, maybe we could go through each season and discuss different plants associated with how you use herbs for creativity in the winter, spring, fall, and summer. I think that'd be really interesting.
Yeah. Well, let's see. We can start with winter since we're
Sure.
recording in winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, with winter, I'm thinking about the element of water. In TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, water is the element associated with the season. And it's this time of, like I was saying, the bears, of hibernating and really slowing down. Maybe you're journaling and dreaming into what you want to fruit in the fall. So this is a great time to be really nourishing ourselves too. I think about so many of the foods that people often associate with winter time are really like nourishing and hearty. So
Mm.
this is a time of like working with nourishing herbs like roots. And, I also like working with red fruits that are rich in vitamin C and gonna bolster our immune system. But one plant in particular, I work with it all year long, but I think about it a lot in winter for nourishment is milky oats and oat
Mm.
straw. So I know that you have a relationship with oats too, and you love them. Nice. Yeah, Mason's showing presumably an oat straw infusion
Yeah.
on video. Oh, nice. And a milky oats tincture.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brought those specifically for today. Yep.
Oh,
I
good.
came prepared.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, and oats are incredible. I feel so lucky. Oats grow as a native plant around me in the Bay Area. I didn't realize this. Let's see, it's the species is Avena barbata that grows here. And as a
Oh,
kid, we would like run our hands along the stalk of oats and then throw them at each other when we played tag.
that's awesome.
Didn't realize I've been hanging out with oats for decades now, which is so
That's cute.
sweet. But yeah, oats are like this quintessential herb of nourishment. And I love to work with the oat straw in particular as a nourishing infusion, which is just steeping a lot of the herb in water for like we'll steep like a handful of oat straw in a quart of water for 4 to 8 hours. And the oat straw is really nutritive and it's specific for supporting the nervous system. And it just really bolsters our nervous system over time. And it's even though a lot of people associate milky oats in particular with like supporting burnout, I think
Mm.
of the oat straw also for that. It really helps us be in our like juicy selves and just feel so mineral rich and nourished and ready to create from this resourced space. So I love working with oats for creativity.
That's so cool. Do you also thinking of like winter season? What about like a warm bowl of oatmeal?
Exactly. Yeah. Having that for breakfast is so nice. Just like the nourishing oats that are also going to nourish our nervous system when we are working with them as food as medicine, too.
Mm,
You could also do a bath. Kimberly at Learning
that's cool.
Herbs really got me into like oat baths. So you put some oats in a little bit of muslin cloth,
Mm,
and then you get in your bath and you soak that little like bundle of oats, and it creates this kind of silky, soft texture, and you can run it along your skin, and it just feels like it helps create this nice, like very loving boundary between you and the rest of the world, and it's also very softening for the skin. So, so good.
That's so good. I totally vibe with that. And yeah, anytime I finish a quart of oat straw infusion, it's just I feel so invigorated. I just had this random thought. What if you I think I've thought about this before, but what if you made a bowl of oatmeal with an oat straw infusion?
Ooh, that sounds so good. I've never done that. I want to
Yeah,
do that now.
I might give that a go here.
Double trouble.
Yeah,
Yeah.
double trouble, exactly. Maybe throw a
Yeah.
squirt of Milky Oats tincture in there too for
Why
funsies.
not?
Um,
Yeah.
well, very cool. All right, so we're talking. Well, you said Avena barbata. I
Mhm.
wasn't aware of that species, but so
Yeah, or Avena sativa is the more common one too.
right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we got oats for winter. How about spring?
Yeah, in the spring, I'm working with oats all year long, and I'm just adding different herbs to them to make them more seasonally appropriate. So in the winter, I'm adding a little pinch of cinnamon or cardamom.
Mm,
And then in the spring, I'm still working with oats, but I also really like to work with violet.
mm,
Violets. Oh my gosh. I visited the California School of Herbal Studies last week, and the
nice.
violets were in bloom. They were so cute. These little white violets. I was freaking out, weirding out the people I was around. They're so cute.
You were probably in good company over there.
Yes. I brought some friends who were not necessarily plant people, and they're like, "Oh,
Mm,
wow, cool."
nice. You're
My
kind of
friend's a
weird,
weirdo.
Tara.
Yeah. It's like, "Yep, this is who I am."
Well, your
But
bio does say herb nerd, so
exactly. What can you expect?
yep.
But yeah, I love violet. Violet has, if folks aren't familiar, these heart-shaped leaves.
Mm,
And it also has this affinity for the heart. So I like to think about the doctrine of signatures, which is this concept that sometimes the plants, how they, physically present might give us a clue of how we work with them as humans. So with those heart-shaped leaves, I'm immediately thinking about violet for the heart. And violet also has this affinity for like clearing physical blockages in the body. It is a lymphatic support, so it can help bring flow and release stagnation to the lymphatic system. And it's often put into an oil and used for like very minor benign cysts and helping break them down in the body topically. And I think about just how violet can help with breaking down these physical blockages. It can also do that on an energetic level. So sometimes when we're trying to be in our creativity, especially in the spring, like maybe we were really hibernating all winter and we got a little stuck. We sometimes need a
mm,
little oomph in the spring to help us really be in our flow, to
that's
really
cool.
sprout up like the chickweeds and the violet flowers. So the violet can help us get over those energetic blocks, whether we have writer's block or maybe you're a singer. And violet has an affinity also for like unlocking your voice.
Mm,
So it can help, it has this affinity for helping us speak our truth. And it also has this association with like the inner child. I think about a shrinking violet. So maybe there's a part of you as a kid who felt like, my voice isn't like valid or isn't powerful. Like, I'm going to withhold from expressing myself and being creative. Violet is a really great ally to work with to like speak your truth and be in your full creative expression. And I love that it does that while also offering this heart support. It's known for just gladdening the heart, having
mm,
this like sweet, softening, uplifting quality for the heart. And with all of these things, I'm working with violet either as a topical oil where I'm like massaging it on my throat or on my chest, or it's also really nice to make a violet syrup. There's a great violet syrup recipe on the Learning Herbs blog from Rosalie de la Forêt, who I know you know,
Oh
Mason.
yeah, she's my homie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just texting with her before the
Oh,
episode.
sweet. Yeah, and then I love just working with violet flowers like on a salad if violets grow near you. They're so beautiful. There's something about just the medicine of their beauty too. And seeing those flowers, especially in spring after you've maybe been hibernating in winter, to just get to have flowers in your medicine and in your food is such a sweet way to be in touch with the life cycle of the plants and to be like, what do I want to start flowering in this season? So that's how I like to work with violet.
I love the concept of connecting the heart to the voice, and
Yeah.
it sounds like violet could definitely be a plant ally like that. And I've heard calamus kind of explained similarly by Jim
Yeah.
McDonald and KP Kulsa, but I know that some people have fears around that or contraindications. So violet sounds like a really safe way to do that. I was actually going to ask you about this, if you had any sort of not creative, but like a herbal support that you take before jumping on the mic for the Herb Minter Radio episodes to kind of open up and just be your full-on Tara self. And I was wondering, maybe you do you use violet in that way to just kind of project, or maybe I'm projecting here.
Really projecting. No, that's such a good question. When I was first starting on the podcast, I was very nervous. I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
people are going to listen to me. Oh no.
They're gonna judge me.
Yeah. Oh God, to be heard. And I do a lot of the editing on the podcast.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I had to listen to myself for hours.
Cringe.
It was, yeah, I was just cringing and humiliated, the first few months. But I got over it, which was really nice. And violet, especially during that time, was such a nice ally to work with. Like a little bit of violet syrup in my tea. I think I was also taking Rescue Remedy and like
Sure.
California Poppy. It was like, sedate me. Chill, Tara.
Yeah.
But now I feel really comfortable, and it's this fun, creative thing that makes me feel giddy. So I generally have a cup of tea when I'm on the podcast. Right now I'll show it to the video. I have a
Yeah, show
cup
and
of
tell.
rooibos tea.
Nice.
Yeah, and I associate rooibos with my mom because she always made it when I was growing up.
Oh,
So
very sweet.
it has this sweet, comforting quality for me.
Man, back when I worked at Mountain Rose Herbs, I used to drink a lot of rubus. I haven't had it in a while. I need to revisit it. Yeah, lots of good stuff going on there. Also, going back to violet, connecting the heart to the voice and speaking your truth,
Yeah.
being yourself. Do you kind of look at it as like something you take tonically, or something you take in the moment to help out, or maybe like a mixture of the both?
Good question. Yeah, I like to work with, if I'm taking it more tonically, I'll do a violet flower essence, and I'll work with that over several months. And then maybe for like a month, I'll add, like a little bit of the syrup to my tea. Maybe I have an oat straw tea and I put some violet syrup in it. So I'll work with it for shorter periods of time in its stronger physical form, and then longer periods of time with the flower essence. And then sometimes I'll have like a big bottle of violet infused oil. So I'm like, great, I'm just slapping that on my skin until
Okay.
it runs out. Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you say you actually use the oil like on your throat too?
Yeah, I'll use it on my throat and then I'll rub it on my heart as
I
well.
love that.
Yeah.
Wow, you're opening up a whole new world for me, Tara. So I
Oh,
love that.
nice.
Yeah, this is great. Very cool. All right, so we got oats for the winter. It sounds like that was violet for the emerging spring.
The emerging spring.
Yeah, yeah. So was there that was for spring, correct? Yeah. All right, awesome. Did you want to move on to summer?
Let's go on
Creativity?
to summer. Yeah.
Oh, I can't
Yeah.
wait.
So for summer, I like to think about rose, which is a classic herb that folks often work with in the summer because it's cooling and soothing. So folks often work with rose for sunburn or different skin issues that can arise during the summer, or they'll have a nice rose tea if they're feeling a little overheated. summer is associated with the element of fire. So, which makes a lot of sense to people intuitively. The sun is very hot. We're overheating. We're a little flushed. We're getting sunburned and inflamed. And rose can help cool us down and simmer us down. So I like it in the summer for those reasons in general. But then from a creativity standpoint, I like to think about in summertime, we get this beautiful opportunity to really assess our capacity and our boundaries. So in the summer, there tends to be more activities for us to get to do. And there's often a lot of output that's happening. Things just kind of ramp up the pacing in the summer. And we get this opportunity to really be in right relationship with what our actual capacity is. Do I actually have time to hang out with my friends on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then also work, and then also take care of myself? Maybe. I'll try it out. And Rose really is this beautiful boundary setting herb and like helps us create a container because rose not only has these beautiful flowers that we're all familiar with, it also has those thorns. And though those thorns can sometimes poke us and be a little painful, they give us this sweet learning opportunity to think about boundaries. Like, what is the container for the rose so that it can successfully bloom and then eventually fruit in the fall with those beautiful rose hips? So, when we're working with rose, we really get to be in that question of like, what is my capacity so I can move through this whole life cycle of creativity? And sometimes we overstretch past our capacity and those thorns come out and we're like, ow, okay, I gotta wind it back a little bit and be actually living in like my fully resourced self. So I love to work with Rose for that reason in terms of boundaries and capacity for creativity. And then like Violet, Rose also has this association with the heart. So when we're creating, we get this beautiful opportunity to be in touch with our whole body, in touch with our heart, not just living in our head. And Rose invites us into this like softened space in our heart. It's uplifting, it's soothing. It has this storied affinity for soothing heartbreak and soothing grief and just giving us the opportunity to be in our somatic body. So those are some of the reasons I like to work with Rose for creativity.
So even though it's wintertime, I've actually been making more and more rose tea lately because
I bet.
yeah, it kind of just been coming up in my life more and more, like getting the
Yeah.
recommendation of utilizing this amazing plant medicine. And it's funny how, you have so many different herbs in your life and you kind of get stuck in the same, like I drink a ton of oat
Yeah.
straw infusion, whatever, but I'm like, I really need to get rose back in my life or into it more. And it's so astonishing after you drink a cup of rose tea, you do feel that just incredible joy.
Right.
It's so hard to explain to people that don't understand or have relationships with these plants. I was actually just on a local radio show in Green Bay, Wisconsin,
Oh,
and
nice.
I use the word and these I'm talking to like this pretty normal guy. He's like a
Yeah.
stand-up comedian and stuff like that, and I said the word relationships with plants, and he was just so like fascinated by saying that. So I'm so happy that I have a new relationship with Rose. I'm introducing it back into my life, and yeah, I could not agree more. I love that idea of associating with the summer as well. How are you primarily taking Rose in? Is it in the form of tea, hydrosol, all the above?
Great question. Yeah, I love to work with a simple rose tea, like you were saying. If you have access to fresh rose petals that are grown and don't and aren't sprayed with pesticide, you can make a fresh rose petal honey, which is so delicious. Kimberly Gallagher at Learning Herbs makes this incredible rose petal infused honey that I love. So that's a delicious way to work with rose. And then I also like infusing rose into oil and using it topically. Um, that can be a nice way to think about the boundaries too, of like, oh, I'm coating my skin in this boundary, setting herb, and here's the container that I'm living in with this rose on my skin. And then I also like to work with the hydrosol. During the summer, I have maybe like 4 little 1 ounce spray bottles that I put rose water in, and I just put them in all my different bags. And then wherever I am, I'll just, if I'm with a friend or by myself, be like, "Do you want any rose water on your face?" So I'll just spritz the people around me and then myself. Yeah.
It's so refreshing. I used to buy rose water from this natural food store in Eugene, Oregon. This is well before I was even into herbalism. I was kind of into like natural foods and stuff like that, and I would like
Yeah.
splash it on my face, and it smells so good. And again, yeah, some of my more normal friends, quote unquote, I guess, like non-herby type people, would look at me like, "What are you doing? That's kind of weird." But I was all about it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess rose has been in my life for quite some time.
That's
You
so
mentioned
sweet.
it really is. You mentioned. Winter is water,
Hmm.
summer is fire, and I don't. You may have said it, but I don't know
Yeah.
if I
I
picked up
didn't.
what's spring.
Yeah, so at least we're in like the five elements traditional Chinese
Sure.
medicine framework right now with this, but spring is typically wood. So
Oh,
yeah,
so is
yeah,
there? So
wood
I
like
are we getting to say? Are you going to say there's a fifth season then in TCM?
in TCM there is. Yeah,
Okay,
there's the
awesome.
late summer.
Oh, good. All right. Well, do you have any herbal allies for creativity in the late summer?
I do, in fact.
Oh,
I'm so glad you
wow.
asked.
My fingers on the pulse.
Yeah, so in the late summer, I'm thinking about orange peel. So, orange peel has this affinity. I mean, the oranges themselves are delicious to eat and
Oh yeah.
refreshing during, summertime, really any time of the year. I love oranges. But the orange peel, you can just peel the orange and then put some of that fresh orange peel, or you can dry it and put it in water like a tea. And it creates this really nice, aromatic, very delicately bitter tea that can help support digestion. And it also is uplifting too. It makes me feel happy when I'm drinking orange peel tea. And I really like to think about orange peel with creativity because orange peel helps us digest. And with creativity and stoking the creative fires, we really need to be able to like fully digest the world, all the things, all the inputs that are coming in and might be overwhelming. So orange peel helps us physically digest our food, but I also think about like what is it helping us energetically digest all these different inputs that are coming in. And then also by tending to the gut, I also think about, the saying of like follow your gut. By tending to your gut, it's like we can get more in touch with our gut instincts, which are such a part of our creativity, like just our innate instincts, our innate creative impulse. So I think about orange peel in that way. And then I love working with the peels because it feels like a creative act in itself. Like I didn't know
That's
when I
cool.
was younger that you could work with orange peel and not just compost it. It
Right.
feels like this kind of
Hey,
resourcefulness.
at least you even composted it.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, but there's like when I love working with food scraps and different like yeah, just things that I might not think to work with as herbs. And that feels like a creative process in itself. So it's an invitation into creativity. If you're like, I have writer's block, I'm burnt out, or like I don't have the energy to do X, Y, or Z in my creative process. Look how creative you are using this orange peel. Like that's the first little step right there.
That's so cool. You mentioned writer's block a couple times.
Hmm.
Do you have any goals to flesh out this concept into a book of sorts, Herbs for Creativity?
I don't, but I'm not opposed to it.
Sure.
I write
It's
all
really
the
unique.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think about creativity a lot, and I'm also in massage school right now. I'm gonna
Oh, nice.
graduate in a few weeks, which is cool. And it's been this great opportunity to be in a different creative mode too, because my main modes of expressing myself creatively are through writing and cooking, and then I like to knit, and then
Nice.
working with herbs. But then in massage, I was like, oh, there's this whole kinesthetic and somatic form of creativity of how you massage someone. So that's been a really interesting just way of reframing creativity for me over the last few years. So I've been a little obsessed with like herbs and massage for creativity.
That's neat. You mentioned making tea out of the orange peel. Now,
Yeah.
is that like a decoction, or are you just kind of throwing it into some warm water? And also, kind of
Hmm.
related to that, I suppose you are going to want to get organic oranges, or
Yes.
how important is that? And do you know if even organic oranges, do they have like any sort of like wax coating on it or anything like that? Are you
Mm.
aware of this?
That's a good question. So the first part of your question, when it comes to how to prepare the tea, if
Yeah.
it's fresh orange peel, I'm usually just doing an infusion because
Okay.
the oils, like the volatile oils, which are the aromatic part of the plant, feel a little more delicate to me when they're fresh. So I'll do an infusion where I just pour boiling water over the orange peel and let it steep for like 5 to 10 minutes. And then if it's dried orange peel, I'm doing a decoction to like break down those cell walls. And then
Gotcha.
I often will add my orange peel to my oat straw. So
Nice.
yeah, I'll often decoct those together, which is fun. And
Nice.
then the next part of your question was around like sourcing oranges. Yeah, if I'm doing this, I do it with organic oranges. And some of them I notice do have a waxy coating. So it kind of depends on your comfort level
Sure.
with that. And I also, living in California, I have an orange tree in
Right.
my backyard. And the oranges themselves, like the fruit is doesn't taste good. It's like really mealy. So I often harvest the plant. I'll eat the orange, but I'm harvesting it
Sure.
with the intention of using the peel.
That's so cool. Yeah, lucky
Yeah.
you. Fresh
Yeah.
oranges right around the corner. That's
Yeah. It's
awesome.
amazing.
So, fire for the standard summer, late summer is which element?
Yeah. Fire for standard summer, and then late summer is earth. So
Oh,
thinking
okay.
about, we're harvesting this time of year. The
Yeah.
fruits are, getting riper and more plump. It has that nice, like, earthy
Mm.
element to it.
Did you
Yeah.
learn a lot of TCM at the California school? Is that where you got that
I
education?
learned a little bit, and then
Okay.
I went to an Ayurvedic program after that for
Oh,
several months that I didn't mention here. And
okay.
then I actually learned most of my understanding of five element theory from massage school and acupressure class.
Oh, very
Yeah.
cool.
And it was cool to marry that with all of my herbal knowledge. We're learning about the different seasons and the elements and bringing things into balance. It's like, yeah, herbs. Cool.
Yeah, I bet your massage room is going to smell really good. It's going to have all
Oh,
sorts of herbs, maybe
it
some
smells
incense and whatnot.
awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Can you put like say a dried orange peel into like an incense cone or something like that? Do people do that?
I haven't done it, but
Hmm.
I wonder if you could. I
Yeah.
I want to know. If someone who's watching this or is listening has done it, I'd love for them to comment or reach
Yeah,
out. I'd love to know.
that could be interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, why don't we tie a bow on this? Presumably that'd be the fifth season, and that'd be wait, did we do it? No, fall. We got to do
Yeah,
fall.
yeah,
We
we're
already did
going into
winter. Yep.
fall.
Yep.
Thinking about the element of metal in this TCM framework.
Nice.
And in fall, I'm thinking about, there's just been this big push, at least agriculturally, to like harvest all of the fruit, prepare for winter, and we might still be processing all of the harvest. People might be, just going back to school, whether it's themselves or their kids, there's just like this big push right before we hibernate for winter. So it can be a little stressful. We can get in our heads. We might not have as much time to be in our full creative expression. And things are also starting to cool down. So our body's temperature regulation might be a little weird. We're like, am
Mm.
I hot? Am I cold? What's happening? So I'm thinking about rosemary this time of
Mm.
year. And I love working with rosemary because most people are familiar with this herb. They've either seen it growing or they've seen it at the supermarket, whether in a fresh sprig or, it's in the spices section. And rosemary is warming, it's a circulatory stimulant, so it's going to get things moving. And I love to work with rosemary for creativity because it connects so many of the different body systems in a really
Mm.
beautiful way. So it has this digestive support element as like a carminative, so it can help with bloating and stagnant digestion. It's also a little bit bitter, which helps promote healthy digestion. And then it also has this affinity for the head. It's associated with like memory. There's this
Mm.
whole phrase of like rosemary for remembrance. If it's like a slight stimulant, so it brings energy to the head too. And then as a circulatory stimulant, it has this association with the heart. So I'm like, wow, it's connecting the head and the heart and our digestion. So we can be in like our gut instinct, we can be
Mm.
moving from our heart and then also using our head. And I love harmonizing all of those together to be in our creative flow. So
Mm.
that's how I like to work with rosemary is to like really align all those body systems to be in my creative flow. And it also has this historical, like traditional association with just being a protective plant. So a lot of folks, like in the Mediterranean region, will have rosemary growing outside their home, and it just has this historical folk tradition of being protective. Also, where I live, it's a Mediterranean climate in the Bay Area, so there's rosemary everywhere. I like to take a
Yeah.
little sprig of rosemary and put it in my pocket and just feel like I have a little protective container. And that like protection magic makes me think about creativity too and protecting our capacity. And when we feel safe too, it's a lot easier to feel creative. So I love working with rosemary in that way. And there's so many different points of contact you can have with rosemary. As a culinary herb, you can just chew on a little leaf. You can make a rosemary tea. You can cook with rosemary. You can infuse rosemary into an oil and, rub it on your scalp. It's also going to help promote hair growth, which is cool,
Yeah, I
and
need
bring
that.
energy to the scalp. Yeah, so rosemary just has this like sweet, moving, connective energy, which I love working with it in that way. Yeah.
Right when you mentioned rosemary, well, you started talking about like the different organ systems, and for whatever reason, the chakras popped into my brain. I'm like, you talked
Yeah.
about the gut, the heart, the throat, the head, like all up and down, and it's
Yeah.
really neat that you were going through the seasons, and I just picture this like alignment of all the different chakras. I'm not an expert in chakras or anything like that, but
Me
that's for
either.
whatever reason where my brain went. But I thought that was really interesting and neat.
Oh, good. Yay. Yeah, I think about that too. I'm like, this isn't my, expertise, but I'm like these different energy centers in our body are so powerful to get to work with.
When I
Yeah.
was growing up in Oregon, and I spent most of
Mhm.
my life there, I saw a lot of rosemary walking around the neighborhoods. I don't
I
see it
bet.
really here in Wisconsin, but Amanda's
Yeah.
actually growing some from seed right now,
Ooh.
and our goal is to take it outside in the warmer months, and then maybe bring it inside into our little like
Mm,
three seasons room or whatever when it gets a little colder. So I'm really
sweet.
excited to introduce rosemary back into my life again, since I had it so much and so often back
Yeah.
in my Oregon days. But
Like an old friend.
like an old friend, I could smell it right now. Mm.
Yes.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, I didn't know we were going to go in that direction with the seasonality, but I'm really glad that we did. I think the audience is going to get a lot from that, and kind
Right.
of appreciate creativity, seasonality in a whole new way. There's a
Mm,
couple other questions I definitely want to ask you before we get out of here. But is there anything
please.
else you want to say about creativity, herbs, etc.?
Mm, I guess another thing I'll say is that you can start really simple when you're trying to get in touch with your creativity or bolster your connection with your creativity. And outside of these herbs I mentioned, you can just start thinking about like creating rituals. So a ritual is basically just an action that's paired with intention. So you can start very simple, maybe when you brush your teeth in the morning, are also going to rub like a rose facial oil on your face. And that becomes a little ritual of connecting with rose and like this beautiful herb that can, be a boundary setter for you and contain your creativity. You can also think about with ritual setting, like what time do I want to do this ritual? Is this a daily ritual, a weekly ritual, monthly, yearly? So just having like a little point of connection, an action with intention to, be really setting the container for your creativity, you can create this gateway into like a deeper creative practice to get you into that flow state, into that like seasonal, grounded, creative flow.
I love that. That's always my advice too. Start small, build up from there. If you could only see, Tara, my self care checklist, which is it's hilarious. Like every
Show
couple,
me.
yeah, I will actually. Eventually, I'm actually going to create a video around my whole self care philosophy and routine. But
Oh, cool.
it's interesting though because I'll add new stuff to it every so often. And then eventually it kind of starts to feel overwhelming, which is the opposite effect you want to have with a self-care routine. But I love it though. And I have this whole system around doing all of these different things. So that's a great tip. Start small, building these rituals for creativity. Kind of on the same line. I would love to know, you've talked a lot about different topics today that kind of reminded me of self-care. Do you have any, it doesn't have to be creative related, but do you have any off the beaten path, random, maybe weird self-care things that you do for yourself that you'd like to share?
Me doing something weird?
That's kind of the theme of this episode.
Yeah.
Tara's weird.
Yeah.
Me too, though. Me too.
It's so much more fun that way.
It's true.
Yeah, what are my unusual self-care? So I have 3 housemates that I live with, and we each have different cabinets for our food. And in my cabinet, I have like a list of all my self-care items on a checklist. And some of them
Love it.
include like adding sea salt to my water for more electrolytes. A lot of the self-care tools that I've been taught that I've really incorporated are like rooted in Ayurveda. So I'm really grateful for it's such an incredible science and framework that has so many accessible self-care tools. One of those things is like tongue scraping in the morning after I brush my teeth.
Nice.
Yeah, and then sometimes I'll drink whatever tea I'm having in the morning, and then I'll sometimes gargle with the tea too, because it's just nice for the oral microbiome. So I'm like, what are the weird things I'm doing every day? And then I'm also going outside and connecting with the plants that are in my yard. So when I first moved to the spot I'm at 2 years ago, and I noticed that the neighbors had a big hawthorn tree. And then I noticed in my yard that there was a teeny tiny, like few sprigs of a hawthorn tree. And since I've been here, it's shot up and it started fruiting. So I'll often take my cup of tea and go visit the hawthorn tree and say hi and look at it during the different seasons. See, I'm like, I bet there's buds here. You're going to flower here and fruit there. And then I'll, probably pour some of my tea onto the tree to give them a little offering. So those are some of my self-care practices.
Thank you for sharing. I just added like 3 new things to my list, so thank you very much.
Happy to add overwhelm.
Awesome. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we don't know when this episode will be released. We've got a lot in the pipeline, but kind of with that in mind, are there any projects, events, anything related to learning herbs or something you might have going on here in the coming future that you definitely want to kind of share? We want to plug and promote y'all over Herbalist Radio, Learning Herbs. We love y'all. So yeah, anything coming up you'd like to shout out?
Thanks, Mason. Yeah, I think not knowing exactly when this is going to come out, it's hard for me to say exactly, but we tend to just have great webinars that come out once a month, generally, from different incredible herbalists like Rosemary Gladstar, Seven Song.
I've heard of them.
Rosalie. Yeah, so many great offerings. So just stay tuned. And then year long, we have Herb Mentor, which is this great subscription membership platform that has lots of classes. And I get to teach on there like every other week. So you can catch me and Kimberly Gallagher teaching on various topics. In early winter, we taught about nervines. And
I was at that class, I think.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's so fun. Yeah, we taught about herbs for respiratory health. In February, Kimberly and I are going to dive into aphrodisiac herbs. So we always have fun topics, and it's great to have folks check out the classes. And we get to meet people there, too. Like, I get to see their faces. It's so fun.
That was one of the coolest part. Yeah, I am a Herb Mentor member, and that was when I attended that webinar. I was like, whoa, you get to see all the other people. That's a really neat feature.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Feels like you're in a classroom together.
Yeah, it's so nice to, so many of the things we do are online, which is cool in terms of accessibility and reach, but I love connecting with people, so it's so fun to see people's faces. So, yeah, you can find all of that at herbmentor.com or learningherbs.com.
And is it easy to sign up for the newsletter just by going over there, or is there a link you want me to send folks to sign up for the newsletter?
Yeah, it's very easy. If you're just on learningherbs.com, you can sign up for the newsletter there. But we can also put a link in the chat too, or not in the chat, in the show notes. I'm so used to putting links in chats of the classes I teach. Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's bring back an old question,
Fine.
just to kind of wrap up the show. What's your favorite part of being an herbalist, Tara?
Oh, well, one of my favorite parts is that I never feel alone. Like, I think being alone is such a myth in this beautiful, magical world that we live in. When you're an herbalist, you get to be grounded in the animate world around you. You get to be friends with all the plants around you. So no matter where you go, you have friends. Even if you're in an unfamiliar place, you might see a dandelion growing out of the sidewalk. Or if all the plants are unfamiliar, you get to meet all these new friends. And that has been such a grounding cord for me, no matter what happens in my life, no matter where I've moved or what big changes are happening. I recognize my friend chickweed growing over there, or plantain is on the path I'm walking on. And that is just such a beautiful way to feel like part of the fabric of this wild world that we live in.
Oh, that's beautiful. And it was very comforting when I moved to Wisconsin.
I bet.
Now, granted, I don't know a lot of the plants out here, but I do know a lot because there's a
Yeah.
lot of weeds that grow all over the place. So it's nice to connect with, like you said, dandelion, etc. So
Nice.
very
Oh, I'm
cool.
glad you saw some herbal friends when you made the move.
Absolutely. Well, Tara, this has been a blast. Any like last minute things you want to say before we wrap up and get out of here?
I think that's it from
That
me.
covered
Just
it?
thank you so much for chatting with me, Mason. It was really fun to get to have this conversation, and yeah, so fun to always be exploring herbs and creativity together. So thanks for the opportunity, and thanks everyone for listening.
That's right. Well, Tara, I could tell you're very good at your job. You're very enthusiastic about the
Whew.
plants. Very good. You're
Thank you.
enthusiastic about the plants and the people. Like, it's really cool to see how enthused you are about the herbal community. And Learning Herbs is lucky to have you. Really appreciate you joining us on the show. I'm really stoked to release this episode because, herbalism for creativity. What a fun topic. And that's going to do it for this episode, y'all. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thanks, Mason. Bye,
Thank you, Tara.
everybody.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Yay.
Sweet. Good job.
Yay. Thanks,
Nice.
Mason. That was so
Stop that.
fun.
Thanks so much for watching today's episode of the Herbalist Hour. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want more great herbal content, be sure to subscribe to our HerbRally YouTube channel. If you enjoy these Herbalist Hour episodes and you'd like to join us live, you can do so by becoming an HerbRally Schoolhouse member. Learn more at herbrally.com/schoolhouse. And if you want to get your first 30 days for free, use coupon code YouTube30 at checkout. So our HerbRally Schoolhouse members get access to exclusive video classes, monographs, and a lot more herbal community discounts, along with joining these live Herbalist Hour interviews. So one more time, herbrally.com/schoolhouse. Enter coupon code YouTube30 at checkout to get your first 30 days for free. All right, we'll see you in the next episode, and take care.